Richard. 1 week before the big game. They call it the big game.
Well, we're not allowed to call it the Chicken Soup Bowl.
Yes. Oh, speaking of the Chicken Soup Bowl or the big game, I've been really thinking about something. We live in the moment all the time. Like we have recency bias, and we always are stuck in the moment, especially with the internet now. And we don't think as much. I don't think like back in the day, we would think about history and about histrionics and about how big things are. Is anybody thinking that this could be, and I hope it's not, but this could be like Joe Burrow's Dan Marino moment? Like we assume that great players end up getting back to the big game or whatever. I kind of hope it's not, because I think he's great. But what if this is his only time he ever goes?
Well, I think that's probably a great motivation for his thought process. Because there's a lot of things that change dynamics, especially in the NFL today with salary caps. Your team today is not necessarily your team tomorrow. So, if it is, it is. But I don't think that's going to do anything either way to affect the outcome of the game.
I don't think it will this one, but do you think he'll ever get to another Super Bowl after this one?
Well, they've got a pretty stout defense.
Yeah.
And I
good running game.
Good running game.
If they could get an offensive line.
But, there's so many things. I listened to Todd Haley on Ron Cook's show this morning.
Right.
And I love Ron, by the way. But that's a whole different topic. But, there's so many things that go into it. And you talked about just winning one game, winning the big game as opposed to winning any game in the NFL is very hard to do. And, there's things that go into it. There's timing, there's circumstance, there's injuries. There's so much that happens that it's really hard to predict that somebody could be back into that game again. It really is. So
yeah.
I don't know. And remember, look, this is really his rookie year.
Right.
So I would say I don't know if he's that type of talent yet. I don't know if he's Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know if he's that talent yet. But right now, he's really easy to like.
Can I put you on the spot about answering a question? And it's a multiple choice, so it makes it a little bit easier.
Sure.
If I had to tell you your general manager, Richard Bazzy, and you have your football team, and you could pick one of the 4 young AFC quarterbacks, that is to say, and I know you won't pick the first one because you don't like him, but you could pick Mahomes, you could pick Josh Allen in Buffalo, you could pick Herbert with the Chargers, or you could pick Burrow in Cincinnati, and you had 8 years from right now, and you knew they were going to be on your team for 8 years. Who would you pick?
Herbert.
You know what? I would too.
Would you really?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that'd be my pick.
Wow.
He'd be my guy. I really do like him. Everybody else has, like, even look at Josh Allen. I like him too, but and he came back and played a great game. Really a memorable playoff game. But he played some really bad games through the year, and he really did. So, but everybody has that ability, that the same potential to be good is the same potential to have a bad day. But no, Herbert would be the guy for me.
You know why I would not? And I go process of elimination.
Yeah.
I think Mahomes is too risk reward in the way that he plays.
Yeah.
I think that Burrow is a guy that might end up coming out of the gate real strong, and his game might get figured out a little bit. And with Allen and Herbert, I have them like kind of 1 and 2. But Allen takes too many hits, Richard. Like, that running style is great, but he's going to deteriorate at a more rapid rate than Herbert is because of how many designed runs and how many times he gets hit. You're just bound to – attrition's going to set in quicker.
Even if it's not attrition, by the number of hits, percentages just say if you're getting hit 5 times a game as opposed to 20 times a game, you're just more likely to have a bad injury, not even the frequency of the injury. And, it's a pretty violent game, and the speed of the game is pretty crazy. But are we going to talk about some of those other wonderful topics?
Oh, we're going to talk about them all. Go ahead. Fire away.
Well, let's see what we have. We have the systemic racism that they're talking about. They're talking about an owner offering $100,000 to the head coach to lose. We're talking about.
Can I talk about that? You want to talk
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, please.
You know what?
What?
If what you, Jackson, said is true, if what Brian Flores said is true about both the Browns and the Miami owners,
Yeah.
not only should they be forced to sell their team,
Yeah.
they should be charged federally for skewing the games that are bet on in our country.
Okay, now there you go. See, now I'm going to go down that road, but before I do, I have to, it's kind of rhetorically funny. Hugh Jackson.
Uh-huh.
What was his 2-year record in Cleveland?
If
No,
he was
seriously,
into
what was his
throwing
record?
games, he did a heck of a job doing it.
So
He?
wait, he was like 1-31 or something?
Yes.
Okay, so he was 1-31. So if you want to throw games, just hire Hugh.
Right.
And he doesn't have to try. So that I found that actually entertaining. And I can't even believe he would put his name to that story. However, here's something that's very provable. Follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the money. If somebody paid him $100,000, follow the money. Where'd it go? There's IRS reporting laws. There's bank accounts. Follow the money. Where'd it go? Or he's saying he never took it.
Right. Well,
so he's saying
he hasn't been clear. He's only been clear the offer was there. Nobody's really pressed him, nor has he been clear on if he accepted it. And I agree with you. Like, those are two different things.
No, they're very different. But if he did accept any of it, and the owner says no, it's not true, or if he says it's not true, the money trail it exists. You cannot hide that, right? $100,000 is a lot of money, and it's either if it's going into a bank, the IRS has complete vision there.
Let's say that he didn't accept any, but he can prove that it was offered to him. There's corroborating people, and he can prove that it was. And
criminal charges, sell the team. 100%.
I feel because, it's one thing to break a rule here and there. It's one thing to try to do this or that. But to have an edict to throw a game and to skew the outcome of games, then it dirties the shield. It ruins what the purity of it is. And you are shifting the outcome. And that just you can't do that. That's the most cardinal sin there is.
Yeah, I don't even know about that as much, the moral part as much as even the legal part, because I don't know. I'm not a federal officer, but there is a law that would be breaking. If a gambler would try to influence the outcome of a game, he'd be arrested, right? And I think you've read about people like that. Even Pete Rose, didn't Pete Rose do that?
What about Tim Donahue, the NBA official that did that?
Right. So, I mean, it's really just a slam dunk. Criminal charges, sell the team, end the story. And I can't even imagine that would happen. But the other thing I heard on Ron's show this morning was something I never knew, which is really hard for me to believe that Ron would say something that I never heard.
Okay.
That was
he covered the first Olympics. At the Coliseum, like the real Coliseum.
Like the original Roman.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
We love you, Ron. But he said that the Penguins actually lost games intentionally to get married.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, the coach admitted it. He just passed away this past year. He actually admitted it in a story to Joe Starkey, maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that. The guy at the time, and he said, yeah, not only were we shorthanded, not only did we get, Tremblay and some other guys that were down the liners that I was told to play, but they told me, hey, you got to take one for the team here. There's this kid, a French-Canadian kid, we have a really good shot at named Mario Lemieux, and it'd be in everybody's best interest if we lost.
So that's a problem for me. So let me ask you a question. Who was the coach? Who was the owner? Was the owner DeBartolo?
Yeah, at the time, right? Yes, it would have been.
You sure?
I'm not sure. I'm not positive about that. But the coach, his name escapes me, but he just recently passed away. And it wasn't anybody that was a big that made a big mark with a franchise. It was somebody that was there like a year or so. But he corroborated it. He admitted to it. It wasn't like he was trying to keep it a secret.
I would have a problem with that. Could you imagine telling your guys to loot? No, you can't. You just can't.
And he was also given by the general manager and by the owner a stacked deck not in his favor. Guys that were of much lesser talent that were brought up from the minors, which it made it, I don't want to say easier to throw games, but you just didn't have as many good players as the other team did. So thus it was much easier.
I don't know. It's pretty hard. That goes against everything in my body. I just can't imagine somebody. Maybe I can imagine an owner making that offer, but it's really hard to believe that also.
I can't even begin to have that thought process. Like, to ask somebody, it's one thing if it's an individual sport and I don't think it's right, but it's understandable if one person wants to make that decision for themselves. But not everybody's ever going to be in on it. Some people want to try to do well, such as to make bonuses, to stay in the major leagues. People just have different motivations.
But the head coach is all you need. I mean, if that was the case, if it were true, all you need is the head coach. All he does is keep calling bad plays, right? I mean, that's pretty simple. You don't need collusion. You don't need a receiver to drop a ball. You don't need to do that. You just don't need it. You just keep calling bad plays. So I think that's pretty easy, but it's really hard for me to believe that. But the guy in who is it in Miami? Who's the owner? Hazlitt?
What's his name? Right. No, Haslam is in Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
The guy in Miami is at odds now with Flores, and he says, "You got me. I've just spent all morning thinking about this."
But wait, so Flores?
Yes.
When was Flores was fired, right?
Right. It's the Michigan guy. The guy that's the big University of Michigan guy, Jeffrey. His name escapes me. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So Flores gets fired, then all this comes out.
Yes.
Where was this before? Why didn't this get exposed at the time if it was so egregious?
And the other part that's crazy is Flores contends he refused to tamper. He refused to meet with a quarterback that was a free agent at the time outside of the period in which you're allowed to meet with people.
Tom Brady.
And that's who it was. It was Brady, which is crazy to me.
So is Flores crying over spilled milk? Is Flores accurate? I mean, because then through that comes the racism.
Well, let's first back up to where you are.
I don't understand how that got there. Can you tell me?
I don't know what Flores isn't, but I do know that if he's not right, he's never going to coach again.
Well, I agree with that. But if he is right, well, there's two parts to that, because isn't he the creator of the racism accusations?
In his case, absolutely.
Yeah,
positively. Now, I have a theory on that, though. I have a theory on that.
So do I. Go ahead.
Let's say that they have 5 interviews set up, right? Yeah. And keep in mind, there's only 32 of these jobs in the world for head coaches. So let's say they have 5 interviews set up, and Flores, just by happenstance, is the 4th. Okay? Just the way it's scheduled.
Right.
And Brian Daboll, who ended up getting the Giants job, is the 2nd one. Okay? He's the 2nd interview to go. And he comes in, and the people who own the Giants go, "Oh my gosh, he absolutely crushed the interview. He nailed it to a T. He was perfect. We couldn't ask for anything better." I don't know how anybody's going to topple that bar that Brian Daboll just set when he walked in here. And this is regardless of race. It doesn't matter which candidate. I'm saying the 2nd candidate. Then doesn't it make the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th candidate sort of just going through the motions and moot if you know that you with that 2nd candidate hammered it and got it right, and you knew that was going to be that perfect fit for your organization, but you still had an obligation to interview those other people?
I'm going to really think through that. Yes. I mean, I understand that. I do understand that. But I think when you're talking about equity, inclusion, and diversity, I think you have to really see through those interviews with an open mind.
Can I add one more factor, though?
Yes.
What if you know that guy you just, and again,
He's got
regardless
5
of
other
race,
offers and you may lose him.
in 24 hours time?
Maybe you make him a conditional, say, give me 20, give me 24 hours to, match it or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what you could do there, but I agree with that. Yes, you would hire the guy. If a guy hits you right off the bat, yeah, yes. But I think in this case, in the NFL right now, because of the inequity and the representation, I don't think you got to tell yourself right out front, if you're interviewing 5 people, you better interview all 5 with the same open mind. And you have to tell yourself that. And I really think you have to live up to it. Honestly, one black head coach in the NFL out of 32. I don't know what the right number is, but I know it's not one. And because if it were representative of the players, 70%, it'd be 21 out of 32 would be African American.
I can understand that. I can, but then I work in reverse. Because by saying that, like, let's take just the Giants situation independently.
Yeah.
If you, not you in particular, you in big form,
yeah,
say that Flores essentially should have that job, then doesn't that mean that Dayball shouldn't?
Yes, it does. And I don't know that Flores should have that job. I also don't think anybody should get a job because of color, whether it's white, black, anything. I don't think anybody should get a job just because of color. But I think that if you have, a 7 here and a 7 here, I think right now with, again, equity, inclusion, and diversity, you go and you hire the African American black head coach. If everything else is equal, I think you have to. Because your point and your purpose is equity, inclusion, and diversity. So it's not just win the football game. If I can win the football game and accomplish equity, inclusion, and diversity, I'm going that way.
See, I'm like the wrong, and this is bad, but I'm the wrong person to talk to, even as a sports talk host. Because for me, if I was in charge of an NFL franchise, it's a multi-billion-dollar ordeal in what you got. And the money you bring in skews and is dependent on wins and losses. And maybe it's just naivety on my part. But if I was in charge of something that was dependent on wins and losses, and somebody told me the best chance you have to win the most games is an Asian American 83-year-old woman who's your head coach, I'd say she's hired.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. But I said everything being equal, because what if you had a white 83-year-old that was that could do the same job? I'd still hire the Asian because it accomplishes equity, inclusion, and diversity.
Well, for me, I would just find a way in order to arrive at the best person that I think could lead me to the most wins.
Yeah, I think so too, but I think there's more than one. Look, there's 32. You said it. And Ken Wisenhunt sent this to me. He said, Richard, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world. I've got one of 32 jobs in the world, right? In the world. And so, look, there's only one Super Bowl winner. I'm not allowed to say that, but I said it. There's only one of those winners a year. One. And 32 head coaches, everybody vying for that brass ring in that game. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen easily for anybody. So there's 32 teams. There's 31 losers, one winner. It's hard for me to believe that those winners or that those other 31 would matter if based on color. I don't think it would.
Do you know how this could be fixed a little bit? I think that nobody brings up.
Who?
That if you terminate a head coach and you get rid of a head coach and you have an opening, there should be a freeze on any sort of interviews or hiring until after the Super Bowl for every team. Thus, the pool becomes everybody who's available, and there's not a rush to hire someone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Who's the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay?
Byron Leftwich.
Yeah, if he doesn't get a head coach job this year, something's wrong.
Right, but like take the guys that are coaching right now. Like nobody in Cincinnati or the Rams is really up for a job, but in years past there had been assistants. But wait, do the Miami Dolphins, do the Minnesota Vikings need a coach today? What's the difference if they have a coach today or if they have a coach in a week from now? What's the difference?
I don't think there's a difference in a week, but I do think everybody's competing. Everybody wants to get the best people, and it's interesting because it's not like these people come there; they kind of recycle each other,
right?
And it's kind of crazy to me to see that. Somebody said this morning that on the radio show also, and I didn't agree with that either. But you look to college, you look at what just happened with Jim Harbaugh. He decided to stay in the college ranks. You see that not very many people successfully transition from college to the pros. So where do you get them? Well, you get them from assistant coaches, but where do the assistant coaches come from? They all have to start somewhere. You don't just hire off of the street. You don't say, Richard Bazzy, I want you to be my assistant head coach or my line coach. No, I had to start somewhere. I have to have some resume. So somehow the college system does play into this. I don't know what the answer is, but I know what it isn't. I know that if you really want equity, inclusion, and diversity, I've said that like 20 times today, and I apologize for that. But, those things are really, they have to be paramount. And I think that has to be number one. And maybe the answer is your first interview has to be with an African-American.
Yeah, I mean, that was a thought. That was definitely a thought that I had, was that person would have to have, not have to, but the mandate would be that was your first choice. So as thus to set the bar.
I mean, it solves your scenario of loving the second guy and then waiting to, position 5, but it does solve that. So maybe you're the first, you mandate first, and then everybody's compared to that. And then
it eliminates any token interviews. It eliminates a token interview.
It eliminates a token interview. It also gives everybody hope, right? Because if you have how many coaches? 9 coaching jobs were open.
Right.
That's a lot of coaching jobs. If you don't come out of that with 1 or 2 black, I hate to keep using the term black. I prefer African American. But if you use, the African American, and that doesn't even sound right. I hate distinguishing by color. I just do. And I don't think anybody wins by color, loses by color. I think that, I'm always colorblind. It doesn't matter. But I'm not, the world isn't, unfortunately. So it's really hard. I'm not going to keep going down this road. I probably should stay off of it. But I do think that it needs attention. I love Byron Leftwich. I really do. And I think we have a lot of good opportunities for a lot of head coaches that will accomplish equity, inclusion, and diversity.
Well, let me ask you something real quick. And just not in this realm, but have you ever been part of, whether it's at your current company or something, or as part of like a nonprofit, have you ever been part of like some leadership council that's figured out big initiatives like this? Have people ever leaned on you for stuff like this? Because like you're talking a lot of wisdom here, it seems to me, and I'm being totally serious.
Well, this dealership was a minority dealership, and I had minority partners. One was Rod Woodson, so Rod was a partner here, and really still a very, very good friend. And Rod chose not to be here anymore. So he left and I stayed. But I was very familiar with the minority programs through Ford Motor Company, which are second to none in the world.
It just fascinates me how easily that you come up with solutions. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke, but like how logic prevails in your thought processes.
I'm old. I'm old. And honestly, I think about these things. I read, I don't go to bed till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm reading things that don't matter until we start having a conversation, and then they mattered. But I have thought about this, and I have put myself in those positions. And I love the words equity, diversity, and inclusion. And if you remember, I told you the story about Happy Chandler.
Right.
who was the baseball commissioner, who said, you know, they asked him, Happy, why'd you let that young guy, Jackie Robinson, play baseball? And he said, very simple, it's my favorite line ever of anything. And he said, I just knew that when it came time to meet my maker, if the good Lord said to me, Happy, why didn't you let that young man, Jackie Robinson, play ball? I knew that if my answer was because of the color of his skin, it might just not be good enough.
Wow. Incredible stuff.
And that is, I lived that. I lived that. So that stuff stays in my head, and it really does. And I've been around all of it. I've been around NFL owners and coaches, and the Bill Walshes and the Eddie DeBartolos. I've been around all of it, and I see it. So, and I'll tell you, all of those people. There's nobody that's racist there. Nobody, none of those people. So
incredible.
Yeah,
incredible
it's really crazy
stuff.
to see this right now. I hope it does bring attention to it, and I hope it does get solved.
Well, we got one more week before the big game. Next week we'll make our predictions, right? And see what happens. It's real quick a fascinating matchup because we've never seen it before. Like, Bengals and Rams. I'm fascinated by it.
I love the Rams.
Why?
I just do. I love them. Showtime, man. LA.
I like it. I just want to see a game that's not 20-19 or something. Give me 35-34. I want to see them go up and down. I want to see a track meet.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because Sean McVay, this is how old I am. John McVay, you know who John McVay is?
Yes.
So that's his dad, right? And he was part of the 49ers. And so and I forget what he did for the 49ers, something in talent. I don't remember, but when I was, even part of that or going to some of those games, and I remember him. And so seeing Sean McVay now as like the young buck, 35, 37 years old, I love it. I love seeing that. And I just I want him to win.
I'll tell you why I like it real quick, and then we'll be finished for today probably. But it seems like there's not two dictator coaches nor guys that are like, Both teams seem to love the coach that they play for, and it's almost like he's just an extension as a teammate and not some guy that yells and screams at them. That's why I like these two teams.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I love it. And I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm looking forward to debating it with you next week.
Yes, sir. I will talk to you next week.
Thank you.